Hey guys, DMS here. Today we're talking about a $100 budget killer headphone that brings a lot of good things to the table with a couple of sacrifices. Let's check it out. So no surprise, here it is. It's the AKG 361. As many of you may recall, I wasn't the biggest fan of the 371. It has crazy boosted bass. It actually gave me a headache listening to it. It was built like absolute crap, and out of the several units I got, each one sounded a little bit different and measured different. So a lot of unit variance. Quality control was pretty terrible. I've been told that that is sorted out now, but I'm not going to vouch for it because this 361 is not built very well. I did put a mod mic piece on this today, but here, I'm just gonna wiggle this around. You can see the actual AKG logo wiggles. One ear cup right here where the hinge is just loose. The other one is tight. It's not a well-built headphone, unfortunately. I don't think it's gonna fall apart on me tomorrow. And if it did fall apart, I feel like it's one that is cheap enough that AKG or Amazon or somebody might be willing to replace it if you contacted them. I can't vouch for that, but I feel like that might be possible. But it's not built super well. That said, it's a $100 headphone, and it is making up for that in other areas. Since you can tell there's a mod mic piece on here, it's obvious that I am keeping this headphone. I did purchase it with my own money. AKG did not send me this. After the 371 review, I don't really blame them. But it is pretty comfortable, really isolating. I cannot really hear my voice that well with them on, so for a closed back headphone, I find it to be more isolating than others, as long as you get a good seal. If you don't, well, it has a lot of problems. So if you're gonna wear this headphone, try and make sure you can get a seal with it, because a lot of its performance seems to hinge on that for me. If I break the seal, it really changes both the fit and the sound. And when the seal is broken, I kind of get that ocean in a seashell kind of sound. That doesn't happen too often though. The vast majority of the time the seal is fine. If I turn and tilt my head like this, the cable will rub against my neck and it'll break the seal, but why are you wearing headphones like this? Don't do that. Speaking of, that is a 2.5mm twist lock. Not a fan of that, but it is what it is. I would much prefer just like a 2.5mm that isn't a twist lock, so I could use aftermarket cables that are better built, because this came with two cables. This cable is actually different from the original one that I had in my unboxing video, and that's because the one in the unboxing video was shorted right out of the box. And that's partially why these didn't sound that good in my unboxing video. That, and it did take a minute to get used to the sound once I got a cable that wasn't shorted to mono. These are tuned to Harman's current target, which I'm not personally a big fan of. It's better on these than it was on the K371, but the Harman target is basically beats for audiophiles is what I would call it. It is extremely bass heavy, and I don't personally find it very enjoyable, but the research that led them to that target is by testing just your average person and seeing what kind of sound they like. And as I'm sure you and I know, the average person judges sound quality by turning up the bass as loud as they can. Oh, more bass must be high sound quality. The 361 turns that back just a notch. It still has a little bit too much bass for my preferences, but I do still enjoy using it for things like movies or just casual listening. I would never use this to mix with. Maybe during a producing stage when I am monitoring, or if I am like laying down drums or bass or something like that, but I would not use this for mixing. That said, I think that it is a fine headphone, if not a great headphone, for casual listening, to the point where it's just on my head very often. Which is interesting because it doesn't particularly excel at detail. It doesn't excel at soundstage. I would say this is about as detailed as something like an M40X, which really doesn't say much. And it's that, but with less soundstage. It has a very in-your-head kind of sound. Everything is coming from right inside here. So not a lot of soundstage, not a lot of depth, but the highs, the high frequencies of the Harman target are an area that is very excellent. It's a little bit darker than diffuse field, and what we're essentially getting here are highs that are almost never sibilant, which is nice. Now these do have a little bit of a scoop somewhere in the upper range, but I'm sure that's contributing to this headphone's aversion to sibilance. It does sometimes get a little bit of shout to it, which I notice if I listen at louder volumes, though I tend to personally not listen at very high volumes. I don't like to crank things up unless I really have to, which I try to at least once or twice during testing, but for the most part, I'm not a very loud listener. I would describe these as slightly V-shaped, but very, very pleasantly so. It's one of the few V-shaped headphones that I enjoy, and I will say very comfortably that I don't think there is anything at this price range that is going to perform similarly, whether it is open or closed back, to be honest. There are things like the SR80E, which are open back and do have some very nice characteristics, certainly significantly more soundstage than this, but I do find this more comfortable, and I think overall this is a better frequency response to my ears and a better tone than something like an SR80E. But if you want soundstage, that might be the way to go. Honestly, if you're just going into budget headphones, you could get a K361 and an SR80E and bounce back and forth between them and be pretty set. At least until you hear something in the higher end, and then you're kind of screwed because then you can't ever unhear it. Either way, I'm a person who has a lot of expensive headphones, and I still find myself using this. I still find myself wanting to use this, and for that, I have to say it's a good headphone. When you have something around, when you have as many headphones as I have around here, and you have something sitting around and you just keep finding yourself wanting to use it, I think that shows that it is a good headphone. Which is interesting because the build isn't great, and the sound has some problems that I'm not a fan of. It's not crazy detailed, but at its price, it's so well-rounded, and I'd say that it's just enough of a casual listener that I can easily throw on and not have too many complaints with, and not really be analytical of the music either, that it is an enjoyable experience. I would say this has minor benefits for amplification. It's a bit too low of impedance to use with the tube, and I wouldn't want to because it's already kind of bassy, and I feel like that would make it just a little bit more warm. Things like the A50S sound very good with it, though it needs nowhere near as much power as that. The Atom sounds great. This could do on pretty much any amp, honestly. I would say something with an okay enough DAC would be ideal. But if you have the little Apple dongle that comes with iPhones, that's a pretty decent DAC, to be honest, and this would work fine with something like that. If you're using it as a desktop, if you already have an amp, use it with an Atom, use it with an L30, use it with an A50S. You'll be fine. You will get nowhere near the halfway point on your volume knob unless you just plan to obliterate your hearing. And truthfully, while I do think there are slight benefits from having a nicer DAC, you could probably just run these off just about anything. I just will plug these up to a laptop sometimes and run it that way, and it's fine. So for the time being, this is definitely getting a very high recommendation from me. I am still a little bit wary about the build, but like I said, I bought this pair myself, I've been using it myself, and I'm going to keep using it. Just not if I'm going to be doing any mixing. So it's definitely earned its spot in my collection. So that's about it. I will have this and that Grado both linked in the video description if you want to check them out, but that's all I have for you guys today. If you like this video, please leave a like down below, a comment letting me know what you want to see in the future. If you want to get active in the community, you can at forum.hifiguides.com, and as always, don't forget to stick around and subscribe for more videos like this in the future. Until the next one, guys. Peace.